ਵੈਲਕਮ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੀ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੀਐਸ ਟੈਟ ਪੇਪਰ 1 ਤੇ ਪੇਪਰ 2 ਲਈ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ 2 ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਬਜੈਕਟ ਮੈਟਰ ਆ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਪੈਡਾਗੋਜੀ ਆਫ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਡਿਵੈਲਪਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ ਥਰਡ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਆ ਰੋਲ ਆਫ ਲਿਸਨਿੰਗ ਐਂਡ ਸਪੀਕਿੰਗ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਫੰਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਆਫ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਐਂਡ ਹਾਊ ਚਿਲਡਰਨ ਯੂਜ਼ ਇਟ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਟੂਲ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਲਰਨਿੰਗ ਆਫ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਸਕਿੱਲ ਸਬਜੈਕਟ। every skill can be acquired through a lot of practice. In the teaching learning of English, the main skills are listening, speaking, reading and writing. ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹਰੇਕ ਸਕਿੱਲ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ। ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੀ ਟੀਚਿੰਗ ਲਰਨਿੰਗ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ 4 ਸਕਿੱਲਸ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਆ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਦੂਸਰੀਆਂ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਲਿਸਨਿੰਗ, ਸਪੀਕਿੰਗ, ਰੀਡਿੰਗ ਐਂਡ ਰਾਈਟਿੰਗ ਦੀ। ਲਿਸਨਿੰਗ ਐਂਡ ਸਪੀਕਿੰਗ ਆਰ ਦਾ ਫੰਡਾਮੈਂਟਲ ਸਕਿੱਲਸ। ਦੇਅਰ ਆਰ always the need of making the foundations of these skills firm and strong. It is therefore very necessary that listening and speaking skills should be developed properly during the teaching learning program of school going children. The purpose of speaking and listening is to convey the message to understand. These skills are complementary to each other. The verbal interaction among people take place through speaking and listening. Most of our class teaching employs these skills. The teacher's task to speak on a subject matter and students have to listen to understand the content. The speaking and listening are the language skills as well as media of communication. Listening skill. The listening skill is the counterpart of speech. Without listening, the speech has no meaning. Listening and speaking skills function simultaneously and have the same purpose of facilitating understanding among the persons. Meaning of listening skill. This skill is related to audio sense and speech is the functions of lingual sense. The listening is passive when someone is speaking. Listening occurs. Speech generates sounds which reaches to the audio sense. The sound makes sense or meaning by mental organization. If the listener is attentive, listen to the sound, he understands it. Listening means that audio sense makes sense to listen the sound which is created by the speech. Conditions for the listening skill. The listening skill has the specific meaning and conditions. All the sounds do not facilitate the listening. Some sounds have no sense or meaning to it. A person is not attentive to the sound which does not reach to his audio sense. The listening skill requires the following conditions for its occurrence. The sound created by the speech must have some sense or meaning. The person is attentive to listen the sound which reaches to audio sense. The mental setup of the person is ready to organize the sense of the sound or to understand the message. The person is able to understand the meaning of words conveyed through sounds. The person should have favorable aptitude to speech or sound by speaking. The audio sense of person should be normal. Next we have to done objective of listening skill. Listening skill is the basis of good learning of a language. It makes speaking skill effective and workable. It senses the purpose of communicating the message, content, knowledge, ideas and feelings. It facilitates the verbal interaction among the persons and groups. The educational process is based on speaking and listening. The main objective of listening is to develop the understanding of concept, fact, ideas and feelings. Speaking skill. Speaking skill is the base of good learning of the language. In fact, it strengthens the foundations of language learning. A student who has good at all work is automatically good at reading and writing. Listening and speaking are important not only the first year in the early years of learning the language, it is important throughout. So it should not be cut down or omitted. Functions of speaking. Spoken and written language have very different social functions. In most societies, spoken language is primary. Every community has its own language that it uses for the purpose of communication. It is significant that while most communities use the spoken form of language, not all communities have the written form. Language such as Nago, Mizo in India and no script for a long time until they adopted the Roman script. The basic function of the spoken language performs is to establish and maintain the communication between members of the same language group. In addition to this, spoken language also serves as a vehicle for communication between people from different parts of a country and even different parts of the world. Techniques for speaking techniques for speaking skill. The following are the main speaking skill techniques: reproduction technique, question answer technique, role play by performing actions, by showing a picture or chart, by showing a film, by giving an outline of a story, and through oral composition. Speaking as a foreign or second language. When we learn a foreign language, we learn to speak it in the classroom and later extend the activity by using that language to communicate with other speakers who know it. Speaking in a foreign language serves a much more restricted functions than that of speaking in our mother tongue. For example, we speak in a foreign language only while we are learning it, and only when we interact with speakers of that language who cannot communicate in a language other than their own. The ability to speak a foreign language is advantageous in that it extends are domain of interaction in countries other than our own. In India, English has acquired the status of associate official language. Besides being an international language, it serves as a lingua franca at the national level. Thus, it has an extended function and as a second language from other foreign languages. It is different from other foreign languages such as French, Italian, Russian, Spanish, which have rather limited functions in India. ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਇੰਨੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਇਸ ਲਈ ਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲਗਭਗ 200 ਸਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੇ ਰਾਜ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਦੀ ਛਾਪ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਸੱਭਿਆਚਾਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ। ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਦੀ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਆ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਹੋਇਆ ਵਾ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਨ ਦੂਸਰੀਆਂ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜਸ ਦੇ। ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੂਸਰੀਆਂ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ। ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਆ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਟ੍ਰਿਪਲ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਫਾਰਮੂਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ 3 ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਫਾਰਮੂਲਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ। ਤਾਂ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਕੰਪਲਸਰੀ ਇੱਕ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਆ। owing to the special status that English has in India, the majority of Indians have keen interest to learn to speak it well. They are aware of the fact that English has social prestige and can be used for a variety of purposes. The rapid growth of telecommunication the world over has necessitated the use of spoken language. In addition, scientists, doctors, lawyers, technologists, engineers, and English teachers commonly speak English at the workplace with their class fellows in and out of the classroom. At interviews for jobs, the ability to interact with others in English gives them an advantage over those who cannot speak English well. Listening and speaking are the fundamental skills. These are the foundations of language learning. There is always a need of making the foundation firm and strong. Then only the advice built on it will be strong and durable. It is therefore very essential that listening and speaking skills should be developed properly during the teaching learning program of school going children. In the natural way of learning a language, listening and speaking comes first. In case of mother tongue, listening and speaking practice to the languages is given to the children at their homes. Thereafter, the children are sent to the schools for learning the skills of reading and writing. In the case of foreign language like English, the usual environment of the homes are not appropriate. Mostly the mother tongue is used by everybody at home. Therefore, the responsibilities of the schools have become greater. The English teacher is expected to pay special attention to the teaching of these two basic skills, listening and speaking. Listening and speaking skills are foundations of learning language. These skills are used by literate and illiterate alike. Listening and speaking are the informal skills. The meaningful speech is the language. The purpose of speaking is to convey some content or message to someone else by making sense of the sound is known as listening skill. Listening and speaking are contemporary to each other. Complementary to each other. These two skills are complementary to each other. The verbal interaction among people takes place only through listening and speaking. Most of our classroom teaching implies these skills. The teacher's task to the speak on the subject matter and students have to listen to understand the content. Thus, the speaking and listening are language skills as well as media of communication. Conditions for listening skill. The listening skill has specific meaning and conditions. All the sounds do not facilitate listening. Some sounds have no sense. When a person is not attentive to understand the sound which reaches audio sense, he will not be listening. The listening skill requires the following conditions. The sounds created by the speech must have some sense or meaning. The person should be attentive to the sound which reaches his audio sense. The mental setup of the person should be ready to organize the sense of sound or to understand the message. The person should have favorable attitude to the speech or sound by speaking. The person should be able to understand the meaning of words conveyed through sounds. The audio sense of the person should be normal. ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਸੀਗਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਲਿਸਨਿੰਗ ਤੇ ਸਪੀਕਿੰਗ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਕਿੱਲਸ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਰੋਲ ਕੀ ਆ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਲਰਨਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਤਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੀ। ਇਹਦੇ MCQ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਅਗਲੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਓਕੇ, ਥੈਂਕਸ।